I really want to talk about Watership Down today, and for those of you who haven't seen it, yes, I put a trigger warning up for a cutesy bunny movie that was given a universal rating in the UK and a PG rating in the US because that system, the one we parents trust so much to give us adequate information on whether or not our children should watch a particular film, is a lie! Watership Down is easily one of the most disturbing and violent films I've ever seen. Horror, action, and anime films included. True story, my friend put the VHS of this movie on when we were like 16, saying it was her favorite movie, and within the opening scene, I was screaming in shock while her 9-year-old sister laughed at me. And well, I kept screaming throughout the entire film. I just couldn't believe this was a movie aimed at kids with a completely misleading box showing fluffy rabbits. Truly, it makes The Secret of NIMH look like nothing. And what makes Watership Down particularly difficult to stomach is that, unlike a horror movie where deaths are gratuitous and quick, this film focuses on the slow, painful aspects of dying, along with the impact it leaves on others. It's not even done in some uplifting way, like we learn a life lesson of not acting stupid or something. Most of the animals who die are just randomly taken out in an instant, like when a hawk swoops in and snatches a rabbit named Violet. Then we're left with the aftermath of the rabbits trying to process the random event that just happened in front of them, which leaves them twitchy and terrified for most of the film. So the fixation is not just on the death of the animal, but also the suffering and psychological damage that goes along with it. And that is such a heavy burden to put into a children's animated film. Seriously, I don't know who gave out those PG and universal ratings, but they were smoking crack when they did it. So if you are sensitive to animal abuse or graphic depictions of animals being harmed, this is a film that you want to run away from. However, I do want to try and analyze what was going on with the mindset of the writer, I guess, who is Richard Adams. Not just what was going on in his mind to let a children's book company publish this horrific tale, but what the story might actually represent. Point blank, when I watched Watership Down again, I felt like this cartoon was very much like walking through a real war zone. Almost like a war film, but one that was so sad no studio would ever produce it because it's just too overbearingly hopeless. I mean, in most war movies, people die, shocking things are witnessed, but the hero, or at least the quote, good guys, come out ahead and we feel this sense of accomplishment and that the losses that we suffered were worth something. The movie may reflect on the characters that died at the end, but it's more of a celebration of their life and not this sorrowful event where the audience is left with a need to find a therapist. To the contrary, Watership Down is almost like a war movie that's smacking people in the face with a concept of, this is the real life, the real repercussions of war. For the rabbits, everything's random, they don't understand their enemies, they're afraid, their comrades die without merit or meaning, and there's nothing they can do but keep pushing forward and hoping that there's peace at the end of their journey. But they're also mentally and emotionally suffering every step of the way because they don't want to die like their friend just did. And with Fiver's visions, I think they represent either the vision of a military leader who puts his men in danger, just for the hope of victory, or it's a way to show how terror motivates people into doing dangerous things, like joining the military because they're afraid that the enemy might reach their homeland eventually. Fiver's visions of blood in the meadow, it's very much like we see change, we see our doom coming, and we can either sit here and let it happen, or we can try to fight back in our own way. I gotta tell you, my husband is a veteran. I know quite a few vets with legit severe PTSD, and that's the same type of hopelessness and fear that I see in these rabbits. It is very hard to cope with the notion that sometimes death and violence, it's not personal. It's just part of life or part of the mission, that everything you do spins a giant roulette wheel of potentially good and bad outcomes that you can't take back. Like, you could come out of this happy and having many children and living a long life, or you could get smashed by a car or caught in a snare, or. And I find that a lot of the rabbits' behaviors and mindsets are comparable to books written by Vietnam veterans, and sure enough, Richard Adams, the author, fought in World War II himself. Except, by his own words, Adams never saw direct combat with the Germans or the Japanese, even though he writes like he was in the trenches trenches watching people fall left and right. And I think in many ways, Watership Down is the story that many soldiers weren't allowed to talk about. Stiff upper lip and all, or for my American military members watching, suck it up, soldier. We see this kind of emotional outpour in a lot of animes because the Japanese people are often expected to bottle up their emotions, so a character on screen has to beat you over the head with how they're feeling for people to understand them. Similarly, I think Adam saw and felt things that maybe he couldn't talk about directly, and so it bled through into the themes of this book. But what I find really intriguing about Watership Down is that, despite the idea of desperately trying to find safety in a changing, frightening world, the rabbits don't give up or resign to die because they want to survive. They want to have a happy ending. They have hope that this is possible, even though their children and their children's children may suffer the same cruelties that they have. It's the human condition, the belief that we want to seek out not just temporary pleasure, but long-term fulfillment as well. Because after the rabbits find their safe place, they choose to go back out and find females for their warren. Otherwise, all those hardships were for nothing after they pass away from old age. So even though every waking moment has been a nightmare that psychologically breaks them down, these rabbits still want a sense of normal, of community, of the future, even though they are so often unceremoniously killed around every corner. The rabbits are us. We're all the same. Nature is a war, animals have the same emotional responses as people, and it's all patterns that repeat in this bleak, helpless kind of way, but we all keep moving forward with the ideology that a better tomorrow is out there. It might not be reality, but theories are more fun-ish. Well, that's all I have for now, but this video's not quite over yet. I get a lot of comments that say, do a theory on this topic, but I've already done those theories. So please consider going to my main channel page and clicking on the video tab so that way you can see everything I've done. You will probably find a lot of things you like that you never even knew that I posted. I want to let you know that I also have two other channels, Say Halo Goodbye Gaming and the Fanily Family Vlogs. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed enough to hit subscribe and share. I can use all the help I can get to let other people know that this channel exists. And if you made it this far, leave me a comment that says something like, hey, I made it to the end, and then let me know what kind of videos you want to see in the future. I can't make any promises, but the more people that request something, the more I can look into it. Okay, well, I love you. I'll see you in the next video.